years ago had a young child come in from a car wreck with parents as well. I was called to the emergency room to collect some samples and such. Found myself alone with the child, 7 or 8-year-old boy, and I just sat there for a few minutes and told him everything's okay. You know, just kind of sat with him and seemed to calm him down. The nurses came right in, doctors came right in after me. But it seemed to really help just to take a moment of my time, just to let this little boy know that everything's going to be okay. Mom and Dad are okay, and people are coming to help you, and everything's going to be okay.
We got a phone call back on February 3rd of 2015, and my wife had called me at work, told me that I need to get up here, that they were doing a bone marrow on my daughter. And I got up here, and long story short, she has ALL. Watching our daughter go through cancer, and you know, she got married in August of 2015, about 7 months later, and to walk her down the aisle, that was a pretty cool deal.
There was a man standing outside, and he was just screaming for help and begging for us to come out there and help him. So us and a ER crew went out and realized that his wife was in the car. She had gone unconscious and wasn't breathing. So of course we get a team and we go out to the stretcher, get a stretcher and put her on the gurney. They start immediately doing CPR on her and took her inside. But the man was still outside, and as they were asking him questions about medical history, I look over and I see that there's still a little girl in the car. She's probably 4 years old. So I go over and get the little girl, and she just puts her head against my chest, and she's just crying, and she keeps asking me if Mommy's going to wake up and be okay. And it was just heartbreaking. And it just made me realize that sometimes our jobs have nothing to do with what our name tags say. Sometimes our jobs are just to talk with people and to comfort people. And that night, my job had nothing to do with X-ray, but it had to do with making that little girl feel comforted so her dad can take care of the situation that he needed to take care of.
I work in interventional radiology, and we do procedures that most people have never even heard of and have no frame of reference for what we're doing. So they come in and they're scared, they're frightened about the outcome, about what we're going to do to them, how much is it going to hurt, how long is it going to take. And just to be able to answer those questions and just look into the eyes of a stranger and make them feel at ease and make them feel calm about what's happening. Those are the moments that bring you back.
I woke up late at night, severe abdominal pain, and my wife brought me down to the emergency room, and it just, my experience with emergency rooms usually was waiting, but in this instant, there wasn't much waiting. It almost immediately called in. My vitals were taken. It wasn't any time at all until I was in a room, and no time at all of seeing a doctor. It went by a lot more quickly than I anticipated.
We have had some experience in hospitals at a different location, and you all don't know what you have here. This is a gem because the services here are excellent. Not that we had bad experiences other places, but it's wonderful here. Everyone lets you feel their warmth and caring. The medical system, we're so pleased with the doctors that he had here. We're just very pleased.
Plus the physical setup and whatever. And I've seen several different specialists here, ENTs and orthopedic surgeons and so on and so forth, and it's just like, where are they? Right here. In essence, here.
So convenient.
So convenient, right, and easy to get to, and it's very, very nice. Everything makes sense.
We kind of just thought it was a bruise or something that just didn't go away, so we went to the doctor and they took x-rays, and then they told us just to come back or go back home. And when we pulled in the driveway, they called my mom and told us we needed to come back now. So we went back, and then they just told us it was cancer. I remember the nurses would always bring in games and stuff for me to play with when I was bored. I always remember just having the most fun time in here, even though it was a hospital.
I've made some great relationships over this last few years. I've been a home health nurse. I was able to go into one particular patient's home, care for him for over a year. We became friends. Along with being professional, as a home health nurse, the relationship can grow into friendship. This particular patient, I was able to spend some time with, get to know him in depth. I was able to take care of his medical concerns as long as also his spiritual concerns. The gentleman was very ill. His family cared for him greatly, and as the gentleman passed, I was asked that very morning if I would be able to speak at his funeral. I took great pride in that. It was an absolute honor to me, as growing up in a Christian home. That was reserved for preachers, and I sort of thought, what an honor. At that opportunity I accepted, I was able to go to the funeral and share a personal story with this gentleman that we had crossed paths earlier in our life. It was a situation that is remarkable. He had worked in an establishment years ago that I had visited, and actually helped me at one evening get away from a dangerous situation. And 17 years later, I walk into his house and didn't realize who he was, nor did he realize who I was. As we learned more about each other, that particular establishment was brought to conversation, and we at that time realized he was a gentleman that helped me. And now I've had the opportunity to walk back into his door and help him in his greatest time of need. Yeah. Again, I actually told that story at the funeral, and people were very appreciative.
When I first met Dr. McGinson, she gave me lots of choices. And when I made my decision, she told me, I think you made the right decision. And I had confidence. I just felt like I was with the right person in the right hands. And everyone here, through the entire process, has been wonderful to me. And that makes a big difference.
It's Vicky's journey, and I'm along the way to help her and help her be a survivor.
And in that 30 minutes, she and I just got to sit and talk, and we got to get heart to heart. And she was telling me all of her concerns and her fears, and she was able to feel comforted that I was here listening to her and just being there for her. I also got to talk about myself and some things that I was going through at the time, and she was just as much a blessing to me as I was to her. And throughout her course of her medical procedures, she had multiple procedures, and every time that she came in, I got to be with her. And through the course of her medical procedures, we became very close friends, and even when I see her out and about today, we give each other hugs and we catch up, and it's nice to know that I can make a difference for someone as much as they can for me.
And let them know that, we've all been places we shouldn't have been, done things we shouldn't have done, and it's okay. It's where you're going from here that matters. And then once you can build that bridge and be able to deal with mommy, and then you can help her baby.
What I'm saying is, I believe that in a matter of probably seconds, maybe, minutes at the very most, Cabell Huntington personnel saved my life. They seemed to know exactly what to do, how to do it, and above everything else was the comfort they gave to me by their behavior toward me and toward each other.
It was definitely scary. Bringing a baby into the world, let alone two preemie babies, is a really scary thing. And right from the get-go, from delivery to the moment they took him to NICU, there was peace of mind, which was never expected. But it was terrifying because your baby is laying there and they're sticking something up her nose and she's freaking out, she's crying, and that nurse was so soothing, and she just scooped her up and she loved on her and she shook her and held her and said, everything's gonna be okay. And to us, I was like, oh my goodness, this is like their baby. They're treating them like they're their own babies. And the whole time, there was just constant love and devotion, like genuine devotion to our babies. And it was the most peaceful, it was the most blessing, and the way that everybody just awes and oohs over them, you know, it's the most awesome thing in the world.
My experience at Cabell, here giving birth to Maxwell, has just been wonderful, or was a wonderful experience. From the day that we got here, even though we knew we were coming, I was very anxious. As a medical professional, I thought I knew what to expect, but I had no idea. And everybody from housekeeping staff to the patient care representatives, my nurses and the lactation consultants made this experience wonderful for me. I think at a time that's so exciting, you're looking forward to everything being very positive, but at the same time, you're not really ready to feel vulnerable. And I think that the staff's, compassion, paired with their competence, really made me feel comfortable throughout the entire process. I think the moment that I felt initially realized that I was being cared for, probably was when I was getting my epidural. They asked all of my family and my husband to leave the room. So again, I felt kind of alone initially, but the nurse, the anesthetist were wonderful. They held my hands, they explained everything step by step, and my fears were relieved immediately. And I knew they were right there with me, not only for that moment, but until he was born.
Cabell Huntington Hospital is special because everybody here is so great. They'll either help you out or lead you to where you need to go, get you what you need to do to make your job better or so forth. I mean, everybody here is just so wonderful. I can't ask for a better hospital.
Well, I work in the NICU. I've been in the NICU for a long time. So I deal with parents, and I realize that they probably have a lot of fear, and I try to be understanding of that. But when you're on the other side of it, that fear is realized, and you turn to the people that you've worked hard to be. And so those people were right there for us and treated us exactly how I would want to be treated. And when I care for the babies in the NICU, I treat those families the way I would want to be treated, and I feel like that was done for me as well in the peds department.
When I have those people come into my office and I'm able to connect with them and help them make sense of what's happening in their world, I mean, it is life-changing for them. And when you have troubled families or hurting families and they're able to come together and reconnect, again, there is nothing more exciting than that. And those are the moments that we live for at the Counseling Center.
Well, I think probably to say the most important moment for me here at Cabell Huntington, in all honesty, was when I first came here. When I first came here to this hospital, it had a very special meaning for me. And it was the people, really. I think it was the first time that as a provider and as a professional, I really got to connect with those that I worked with. That what you realize that after many years, when you're serving and working all the hours of the night and all the shifts that go back and forth, you learn that those that you're working with are spending quite a bit of time with you and you with them, much like you would your family. So I think coming here, that was probably one of the most special things for me. And what made it so special was the fact that whenever we had multiple trauma patients that would come through our door, when we had many people that were sick and ill and probably wasn't going to make it, we all really band together really well. And many other places that I've been throughout the state and throughout the area just wasn't that same way. So it was, to me, it just made an impression in my mind that was so unique that it just really stood out. And 11 years later, I'm still here.